before we start, but thank you for the clarification.
So basically, they make a slit in the top of the chicken.
Oh, I've seen this video. Yes.
He's like super sensual with his hands.
It looks like a vagina. It looks like he is playing with a vagina.
And he's like, and then you spray it up. And then he takes the stuff and places it on the inside and then pours a just milky white.
Now I understand why John's so intrigued by this.
What they didn't show him is f***ing the chicken before he did it.
I was dying.
Keep f***ing that chicken.
Everybody kept talking about it. I'm like, what is so intriguing? Because when I think about
F***ing the clucking.
F***ing the clucking.
F***ing the clucking and f***ing the clucking.
The way I think about when you butterfly something is you cut it in half, right?
No, I thought you were going. What I think about when I butter something. Right down the middle.
I'm gonna butter your bread.
You must be butter because I'm on a roll.
Whenever we get the transition.
Keep you guys on your toes. No?
On your toes.
And with that, we can start the show. What is that? The weird one where
Clink,
we're just
clank.
like, clink,
Clink,
clank,
clink, 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 clink.
Hello and welcome to Strange Happy Hour, the bi-weekly, the weekly news podcast that refuses to record on April 1st because we want to be taken seriously. There are no jokes on this show. I don't want to hear any laughing. That's why we're recording on April 2nd.
Biggest April Fool's joke is we don't record on the 1st, we record on the 2nd.
Boom. Gotcha. Ha, you didn't even know it. You didn't even know it. Look at you. Just look at the mirror.
They still got released on the same day.
Yeah,
you know.
shh. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Of course, we come to you each and every week to discuss the video games and tech news of the week. But before all that happens, we have a special guest. Mark, the dispatcher Clover. I totally meant Plover.
The Dick Smasher.
The Dick Smasher. So this week we're drinking a French 75. French 75 is a combination of gin,
Sacre bleu.
sparkling wine, gin, sparkling wine, lemon juice specifically, and
Fresh squeezed lemon juice.
Simple
This man
syrup.
put work into this.
small parts. Now I'm actually ordering a set for a whole mixer,
Jigger
bar,
and all that,
set
yeah.
and all that stuff, so we can actually do properly shaken drinks next time.
Woot woot.
For those of you who don't know, or for those of you who haven't seen the monthly update anyway, one of the things we're going to be looking at as far as drinks go are cocktails and expanding out, as far as what we're drinking.
Very excited.
We're adventurous.
Trying to be.
Sorry, I feel like when you're adventurous, you have to strike a pose. But it sounds delicious. I actually am enjoying this quite a bit. You used
your
a
drink that way.
Brut sparkling wine, so therefore it's that Brut champagne. It's got a little bit more of a
Something a little bit more bite, a little bit more dryness
correct,
to it,
and less sweetness, but it's still rather delicious.
You put it in there and it's like, but it's refreshing at the same time.
I forgot to introduce to my right, handsome John.
What's up, eh? Everyone
And I already
knows
said I'm
me.
the Dick
Can't miss
Smasher,
me.
apparently. Or no, Dick Smacker was the last one.
Yeah, I reverted it back because I'm kind to you. I am Brent, the Jesterhead Metcalf, here to help us continue on with what we call the important. God, we're so good. I know there's very little lead up time to that, but we're going to go to handsome John to talk to us about Sony digital sales at retail.
Sony is once again. I want to play with it.
You
Sony
don't
once
get to
again.
touch my pen on the air. Not on camera.
Not on camera. Sony once again is starting to move towards their digital consolidation, where they're denying not just GameStop, but GameStop being obviously one of the leader ones, digital sales of full games as of April 1st, 2019. This is not including DLC. Let's see. God damn it. This is not including the DLC content, download content, and add-ons. And you can also buy
Credit still.
currency.
Yeah.
I would say it's not in-game currency. It's
It's just PlayStation credit.
virtual currency.
Yeah,
I guess.
because they're the only store. Well, Nintendo moved to it finally, but for the longest time, they're the only console store that actually used money. Xbox still has points. Nintendo used to have a point system as well.
Yeah.
It's super dumb. It's dollar bill.
I don't understand.
Yeah. And this is for digital games. So you can no longer walk in, buy that little thing that looks like a gift card that says, hey, you bought Sekiro digitally.
Yeah, unfortunately, they've already been pushing a plan to get people to say, okay, you could either get a refund or you can get a physical copy, and this is how you're going to do your exchange, which is kind of sad because I understand why people, I mean, with PlayStation having their vulnerabilities in the past, people didn't really feel comfortable putting their credit card on their store and having that data stolen. And
like plain text file with all your credit card information
course,
get
why would
leaked or
you not
something
say
like that.
that?
Or something along those lines.
Yeah, well, the problem is it actually happens with like Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart
just-
on a regular basis.
You just
but they
don't
never
hear about it as much. Yeah.
I do think it's not as sad, in my opinion, simply because you still can buy that currency, so you don't have to put your credit card on there.
Yeah, and there is a workaround to it, which I totally understand why they're doing it. You're going to go directly to their digital store and do what they're going to do, they're going to be able to take a bigger piece of the pie without having to give any towards another store. So I see why they're doing it. It makes total sense. And to go into another store to buy credit just to go do that, it seems unnecessary.
Pointless.
Yeah.
So the only benefit anymore is for gifting.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was wondering is if we had stats on how well those sell in store. Because I imagine that just for the plastic printing and then you're securing a code, there's limited amounts. Like, there's a cost in all of that in and of itself. Is it even worth it?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, because you've got to manufacture individual. You got to first off generate individual codes, then print them onto the device or print them onto the card, and then turn around and store it somewhere in a database to be able to reference months later.
Yep.
You know, that kind of thing.
And they get reused. Those codes get reused after they go into
years later. Though,
yeah.
I mean, the uniqueness of them is ridiculous. I mean, it's absurd. But
I've tried to type in random codes. It's not. You don't get that lucky.
That's the point. Yeah.
Oh, look at this! I got Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Who'd have thought?
Yeah, right. Ooh, pretty princess.
It is really interesting to watch this move happen. Sony's making a lot of these smaller, less like they're not hiding them because we're seeing the news and they're announced to a degree. They're just definitely not like, hey, we're doing this big overhaul.
Well, and two, it brings more to the digital age thing that we see coming. GameStop just reported that they had a $680 million loss for the year of 2018, which is on top of their sale of Spring Mobile for $700 million, which would have brought the total loss of $1.4 billion if it wasn't for that.
That's a lot of do-re-mi.
That's a failing market,
yeah.
And I wouldn't expect it to sit around for too long. So I think it's really Sony seeing the writing on the wall for them and saying, okay, we're going to start moving in this fashion, because Walmart has even talked about wanting to have their own development cycle with games and their own market, believe it or not.
Yeah, I know.
Makes
with
no
a streaming
sense,
service and all that other stuff.
And you got Apple going into the market. So everybody's like kind of going to get to their corners a little bit until they can get a feel for what's going on, while Sony's also being told they're an isolationist and they're trying to play ball with people at the same time. So it's kind of a weird balance that they're being going through.
Well, and they have their new head who just took over, Jim Ryan, who used to be in charge of Sony Europe. His first 2 days, he's literally issued, I mean, he is not, may or may not be the point in charge here, but he is now the person in charge. So it seems like these changes are rolling out as he's coming into play. And one of those includes fixing their return policy for the digital store. So it's become a little bit more lenient. So.
Which is another reason why I'm thinking like they're getting ready for the digital age.
Yeah.
It's coming forth. It is the next step, and it is something to be looked at and to keep track of right now.
It's good to see Sony developing themselves
wits about you
for this digital age, but I feel like somebody who's a competitor has fallen way frickin' behind is finally catching up. Talk to us about Nintendo and their partnership with Twitch.
Nintendo is really interesting in the way they've been handling things. Right now, that if you have a Twitch Prime membership, you get a year's free of Nintendo Online.
Guess who signed up with their Twitch Prime membership this weekend?
I want to follow that one more link in the chain here. That's just having an Amazon Prime account, which the majority of people have, which gives you a Twitch Prime account, which also gives you Nintendo Online.
Correct.
Yes.
What the...
And
no additional steps. You don't have to give away your Twitch Prime money that you would, give to your favorite podcasters or anything like that. So
streamers and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I thought this was an interesting move because I, for one, felt that the offerings of the online were just not worth diving into. I don't play online on my Switch. It's a secondary console on which I play specific games on.
Yeah. And
those games I've played so far, if I lost my save data, like it would be inconvenient, but it wouldn't be the worst thing
detrimental.
in the world.
Right.
So I was like, it's just $20 a year. I don't even think it's worth that.
Man, that's rough.
I know. And
So
now
you-
it's in my hands.
I mean, realistically, it's a pretty simple system, though. It just stores information for you at this point. It's just not.
Yeah, well, they're offering a small digital library of NES games.
Yeah.
And it's upwards of 28 at the moment, where most of them are classics. I think 8 of them are the special edition versions of classics, which give you superpowers, essentially. So, like in Zelda, you start with 6 hearts, the sword that can shoot beams, and like the first armor set, so that way you're upgraded. In Metroid, it puts you in the middle of the game with half the upgrades. It's something ridiculous. And Ninja Gaiden has one as well for the original Ninja Gaiden.
Can't make that game easy.
And so I find it interesting because they're there, but I literally subscribed to this Twitch, set it up on my Nintendo, plugged it into its little dock so I could play an NES game, turned it on for 5 minutes. I was like, that was cool, and then just turned it right off. I was like, I don't
Neat.
see myself spending time playing it.
Yeah, as of right now, with everything going on with my console and games, and like I still have to finish, Devil May Cry. I just got done finishing, Far Cry. We got Division, Anthem. I just got too much to really care about. Like, unless you are a retro gamer, that's not going to appeal to you much.
You have 2 jobs.
No, it's running.
Okay. Good.
It is. You just can't see it.
The clock is not running in the
was
corner for us,
laughing 'cause-
folks. I'm sitting here like,
2
man,
jobs.
there's okay, whew, we're back on track again.
Man.
Almost derailed.
Yep.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. It's interesting nonetheless. I'm curious to see how far this partnership goes.
I think it's interesting that Nintendo even entertained the idea, and I'm wondering how Amazon really plays into this.
I
Because
think
someone's getting the money.
Well,
Nintendo don't do stuff for free.
Nintendo and Amazon have had a contentious relationship for quite some time. I believe that this is their way of trying to make amends, of like coming together. For years, if people would order Switches or, even just basic Nintendo games, it didn't matter what console you're talking about, it would never arrive on time or take days to come. Some people have notoriously had to wait weeks for Legend of Zelda that they ordered for launch.
Wow.
Breath of the Wild.
I don't remember hearing about that.
It's a weird because it's all spotty. It's not consistent, but it seemingly stems from the fact that Nintendo refuses to do discounts or drop prices for a lot of their major platforms.
They had a sale recently, which is funny.
Yeah, I think this is all kind of coming together to showcase that they are playing together. We're good, Marcus. Don't worry about it because we're going to move on to the next topic anyways,
I don't understand.
in which we discuss other technology companies that are getting involved in gaming. Talk to us about Google and Facebook.
Google and Facebook are they're brilliant companies. They make a lot of money, but they also make pretty big mistakes. And once again, Google just can't wait to give away all their money.
Oh, yeah.
So Facebook gave away.
Right here.
No, I'm sorry. It was Google that gave away $23 million, and Facebook decided to give away $90 million. This guy just literally turned in a invoice to each of these companies with a shell company that he created in Latvia, and that was based out in Taiwan. And they're like, just paid it.
Yeah. He sent invoices and they're like, cool. We got it covered.
Yep. And they didn't. He literally gave away. He made a couple of fake emails with some leadership within the company and some forged documents, a couple of them, nothing crazy. And they're like, okay. And just paid out. And literally, it took them a long time.
It was like 5 years.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if he never messed with Google at all, that other $23 million, he would have had $90 million from Facebook and no one would have known.
I'm just saying the ROI here looks pretty good. The time invested to actually,
Yeah. And not only that, but after he got the money, he split it up between 5 different countries. And if he was smart, he would have literally just walked his happy ass all the way to Switzerland and
the
never
question
came out.
is there extradition from Latvia or any of those other countries?
I don't know. That's why I said go to
Yeah,
Switzerland.
because they are trying to press charge. They are pressing.
They are
charges.
pressing. He's actually being
Switz-
arraigned on July 29th.
Switzerland will
Possibly.
jail you though if you commit an international crime that is illegal in the country that you're doing it, that you're performing it in, specifically financial crimes as well.
Oh yeah, no, I would have just cashed out and literally just walked around in suitcases.
Fraud is definitely one of those things they will still arrest you for.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Switzerland doesn't want to be a target on anybody's back.
They just want to be left alone.
Yeah, they just want to be left there with their giant, thick bank vaults of money.
And chocolate. Apparently,
But
they're chocolate.
the interesting part is that he's going to be arraigned on possibly 30 years of jail time.
I think that is a little egregious, considering the fact that these companies openly were like, cool, whatever. It's on them.
I want to see some of these CEOs that are like, I mean, look at Bernie Madoff. I don't see him serving 30 years.
Well, he's serving quite a bit of time.
Yeah, but he also didn't give away any of that money. When he gets out,
and he also stole it from people who were like.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. He was a much worse of a person, I guess it could be considered. I don't know.
To me, this is and it's Robin Hood in the loosest sense, but it feels very Robin Hood to me. Like he literally took the money from the rich and is doing with it what he wants. I'm sorry, I feel like there's some accountability here for Google and Facebook.
Oh,
like,
100%.
You're not
they
going
definitely
through the
screwed up.
process, and now you're going to try and sue this guy.
Well, so they cannot insure for this amount of money, so they've got to do what they can to get it back.
Yeah.
Yep.
If they were insured for it, and it wasn't, don't get me wrong,
that's
$200 million is worth trying to go after somebody for. But
This guy's going to go to jail for a couple of years if he gives the money back.
Yeah.
Tops.
But the other side of it is technically he didn't steal it.
Yeah, they gave
No,
it.
he
gave it to
forged
him.
documents. So
That's the
technically,
crime.
Yeah, that in itself is what makes it a theft.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
If he didn't forge those documents, you're right. He just sent an invoice for some stuff. Technically, they didn't get it, and they could say, we
no.
want that stuff.
Like what we had talked about before, whenever you had initially told us when this broke. You had said, well, yeah, if you had sent them something, a sticker or a picture or something like that, and be like, this is what I'm invoicing you for.
Yeah.
And they'd have paid out for it. Technically, they purchased a product. It's not illegal for them to purchase a product. It doesn't matter what the price is.
That actually, I would have said, no, they bought that false signed document. That's what that was.
Yeah.
And
But anyways, what a fascinating story.
not like that would go through.
I'm
no,
super
I cannot imagine that would really stand up, but sure.
super interested to see what happens when we come around July. I'm sure we'll touch base once more.
Well, I'm also really interested to find out what Google, Facebook, and many other companies are going to be doing to prevent this from happening in the future.
I'm sure nothing, because that would mean they'd have to be accountable.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they always make mistakes, and they seem to be trying to rectify a mistake now, Google. Going over there and getting rid of the old plus. Talk to us, Mr. Ditchbatcher.
Well, so this one's been a long time coming now where, I mean, they made the announcement, 6-8 months ago now? We talked about it then anyway. Google Plus, anyway, was talked about that the shutdown was finally happening. And this year, 2019, seems to be the year at which Google shuts down everything.
Yeah, including Stadia.
Everything.
Oh, don't mess.
No, please, no. No, the one good thing they're bringing out, let's not shut that down. So let's see. First it was Allo.
Yep.
Next to go is, or the next one to go was Inbox, one of my favorites,
Oh, yeah.
which was the Gmail replacement, which
Yeah.
I loved. I loved the organization. It was great. I loved it, Google. I loved it. Now I have to
You
go to
know you
a
don't care.
third-party product anyway. Now next to go is actually Google Plus. So Google Plus's announcement came out, like I said, a while ago, but they're finally shutting down servers today.
Oh. Dun, dun,
Pour
dun.
one out for the homies. I'm not pouring it on the table. Come on.
No, not only that,
Please
it's
no.
not even worth it. And the best
I don't
part
have enough
is,
lemons to make another one.
it was you that said that they didn't make Google Plus actually try to be a contender for Facebook. They did it for photos.
So it depends on the story you believe, because they announced the platform. They said they were trying to get into the social space. And then a couple years later, when it was failing, they're like, no, this is actually a giant experiment for photo recognition for our software.
Right, yeah. No, it was...
That was a cover
I
up.
think it, basically. I think it was actually an attempt at them trying to step into social space because Facebook had been blown up for a little while by this point, but Twitter was finally stepping onto the scene and starting to blow
Yep.
up. Instagram was blowing up. So Google's like, all right, well, let's, throw our hat in the ring too,
And then
You know what we
Facebook
should
just
do?
started eating everything.
Something like
Basically,
Facebook.
yeah.
I can't. That's what killed me. Is like they're like, we should do something like Facebook. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you should do something completely unique and different.
So
Yeah,
the
do something in more of a professional sense that people could link up with LinkedIn about. That would be really cool.
Well, so the Circles idea I thought was okay.
Yeah,
And
not
the
a bad
fact
idea.
that it linked with Hangouts, where you could open a Hangout for your circle,
Hey,
and
can I-
people could jump in. Which the whole point of and the whole reason the name Hangouts existed in the first place was that you would jump on to your computer and just open a Hangout and sit there.
You can still do that, right?
No,
Exactly.
no, you can't because why would you? Whatever. But no, this is just the next one of things to be shut down. Of course,
It makes me want to go buy a Google Pixel.
It makes me really excited for Stadia. Moving on.
I know, right?
They are bringing something kind of cool though to Google
Yeah,
Maps.
on the note of new features, anyway, Google Maps is actually getting a new feature that I actually think is kind of an interesting idea. They're targeting. It seems like they're targeting Meetup anyway, almost directly, with adding public events to Google Maps.
I think this is wonderful because as someone who plays Pokemon Go They do a lot of events, and sometimes we do correspond as a community to try and meet up. And we utilize Google Map coordinates. The easiest way to talk is through Discord.
Right.
And not that this would replace that functionality, but if we could actually set something up where it could tie into people's email, they have reminders with their calendar, like all of those things, this sounds like something that would be really cool.
No. I think it's an interesting idea. That the hard part for me is I've never seen Google Maps as a social place.
So I don't think
it's a utility.
I agree, but I think that utility ties in again, like what I'm talking about, where you can actually create these event spaces, right? And you're hey, our event's happening here. We're going to send this to your email. It's going to tie into your calendar that's connected to your email, and now it's all one swift motion compared to previously. Where
as long as it ties in everything else, that's fine. It's just as it stands anyway. It's pretty much just a create an event and it pops up on a map, basically. Like
that'd be weird.
Yeah,
because you're not like it's almost like they're trying to make it a little bit like Yelp, essentially,
kind of
for public events. But like,
if Yelp also had navigation features and was primarily used for looking things up.
Yes, there's events. Okay, I'm trying to find an analog here. I don't appreciate it. You know what? Just move on to the next.
I'll have
topic.
to see it actually work in motion to kind of, I guess, really get a feel of what to expect from it.
Speaking of getting a feel for things,
ooh.
Valve Index. People got a quick feel for it whenever Valve accidentally posted the page of their 2 Index products on their for those who don't know, Valve Index is their VR system that they've been teasing for a little while, apparently.
There you
rumored on for a little while. Huh?
When you say Valve Index, I have no idea it's VR.
Yeah, no.
I think it's a terrible name.
I didn't either at first.
That's what that's called?
Yeah.
To be... okay, so I will give Oculus, I guess, a little bit of a... and even Vive. I will give the or I'll give Oculus a pass just because Oculus was a company built for nothing but VR.
Correct.
HTC Vive, HTC's a phone manufacturer. That one I was a little confused about too.
I agree.
So I don't get me wrong. I'm equally
literal name Index is like, what is it?
Okay, as developers, Index to us means something completely different.
Correct.
For those of you who work with databases, you understand. But anyway, they accidentally posted 2 store pages anyway. One with the Valve Index itself, the actual VR headset, as well as the base station for tracking devices.
I know what he meant, but it was really funny. It was like, base station.
I was thinking base station. I was thinking.
Oh yeah, it is
base
really
station.
or your base station.
Bay
for your bay
station. The station for your bay.
Like
the pages were mostly blank or had placeholder
yeah,
text,
they didn't have a whole
thing.
lot on there.
No, like it obviously wasn't ready to be published, that kind of thing.
They said they're coming out with more information later.
As a result, anyway, Valve's like, cool, you know what, we messed up. So, you know what, here we leaked this ourselves. May 1st is an official release, or an official reveal.
So
that's when they're actually supposed to be talking about it. The interesting piece to me that I saw is that they're talking about knuckle controllers.
Interesting.
Ooh. Right. Instead of them being like handheld controllers like you get with the Oculus or the Vive right now, they're calling them knuckle controllers. I don't know what they mean by that.
We'll see more come around May 1st, but I think in the same breath that we talk about how of all the companies that can make Stadia work, Google is one of those. Yeah. I think of all the people that can create an interesting space for VR, Valve is easily one of those companies. Like they have a boatload of cash.
An endless resource of money.
Correct. They have a platform to sell their games on that they're already opened up to other VR headsets. And so they're kind of learning off of all of that data, seeing where people are coming in, seeing if there's any interest. Obviously there is. That's why they're investing in it. I find it fascinating that we have this influx of headsets. And I'm curious to see how the market kind of fixes itself. Because I look at my analog as game consoles. And historically, if you look at the amount of game consoles on a market, typically there's only really enough market share for 3 at most. Anytime there's a 4th one, someone gets knocked off of like within the next year or 2. So I'm curious to see, because we have the 3 right now, real contenders, Oculus 5 and PlayStation VR. PlayStation VR is kind of tied to a PS4, so I don't know if that counts as much or doesn't. It's hard to say.
So PSVR, so the only reason I won't classify PSVR in this is because PSVR is a breed of its own because it exists on a console.
Yeah.
Vive and Oculus are essentially breeds of their own here because they're on PC. Now, the differentiation here is how much exposure they get based on how many games are produced
Correct.
and all that stuff, that kind of thing, versus how buggy or clean they are, that kind of thing. But this will be interesting to see another one step onto the
PC platform specifically.
right.
Yeah.
Step onto the field here because it's built by Valve.
Agreed.
It's going to integrate with Steam seamlessly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that it would be Valve being knocked out, but I'm curious to see if the market share has enough space for 3 or 4 headsets.
So the index controllers, by the way, is what they're calling the knuckle controllers because they're all going to be index everything. But anyway, no. So to me, this is interesting because they talk about a base station separate from the headset, separate from the controllers, which to me sounds like a fully wireless system.
Interesting. Well,
Not to mention, instead of it being like they're talking about a base station. First off, it's a charging dock for you to put everything.
yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's just for the knuckle controllers or if that's also supposed to be for the headset. But wireless VR is something that everybody's been talking about for a while
Everybody's been craving.
because right now, if you use an Oculus or a Vive system or even a PSVR system, it's a wire attached to the back of your head, and you've got to stay within the bounds of whatever you've got.
Not to mention the great controllers that we have.
Yeah, for PlayStation's got the worst controllers. Oculus has that new one coming out. What's it called? Do you remember the name of it? They have one that is entirely wireless.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And
I don't remember.
Yeah, so I would be curious to see if Valve is creating one that's wireless and if they beat Oculus to market. So,
I guess last quick point. One thing that people seem to be particularly disappointed at is that it's it's not an inside out based VR system, meaning like the Vive has multiple points on it that transmit outward.
Yeah.
To give specific points based on the receivers that are on the exterior part, versus having transmitters that are mounted on the wall like the Oculus, like Dylan has downstairs, for example, with the receiver being on the headset. That kind of thing. So in like the inside out system seems to work better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But if it's a remote system, if it's a wireless system, that kind of thing, and inside out's not exactly the most feasible thing.
Well,
So
I mean, the new, again, we're talking about that new Oculus. It has no out exterior sensors whatsoever. It's all in the headset.
Interesting.
So
I wish they call the controller the knuckle shuffle.
the knuckle shuffle it is. But speaking of VR, we can move on to some interesting numbers from PlayStation about their VR headset that you want to exclude for some reason. They're selling right now at 4.2 million units out to customers, which is far larger than Oculus and Vive. I believe combined.
Is this total?
It's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
4.2 million.
It's cool. The index is going to sweep the market.
Oh, of course. The index will
Five-finger
knock
knuckle
off.
shuffle.
What I do find interesting about this is that PlayStation just recently had that state of play, which we talked about last episode briefly, where they went hardcore on VR and announced some really cool stuff. And then yesterday into today, they released a bunch of previews, like all media outlets released some stuff. And what I thought was going to be kind of generic, because looking at the offerings, I was like, these look cool, but nothing crazy. Like apparently the Iron Man game's like a solid real deal Iron Man game.
I've seen some pictures on it, and it looks amazing. So, like the one was like was literally like the Air Force One scene from Iron Man 3. Spoiler alert. Where the plane is just exploding, that kind of thing, and he's outside flying or next to it, that kind of thing.
I hope you could actually get underneath one and like hold on to it. That'd be great.
So you like that plane sequence is entirely 360-degree control of you as Tony Stark around it. So you can get underneath the plane and go, I'm just going to fire over here. Like they were describing sequences in the Kotaku preview, and I forgot who wrote it. I apologize, but we'll reference it at some point in time in the description above.
Below.
They are talking about how as the plane's falling down, you have to try and repair it. So you're getting attacked, and you also have to go around and like rip out the landing gear and put the engine pod on and put it on here while you're protecting yourself. Fly around to the other side and pull off the fuselage. Like all these crazy things. I'm like, this is incredible. I want to play this so badly.
Because we had talked about this before. Like, we were all like, oh, well, this is probably going to be on rails because that's the only way you can do it. No.
Yeah.
It's legitimate.
Legit. So on top of other titles, like that one's coming out later this year, it seems like they are doubling down on VR, which continues my theory that PlayStation 5 is going to have a wireless VR headset inside it. I'm so excited.
I hope they do. I hope they integrate everything with VR. They seem like they're doubling down on it. And if they don't come out with better controllers, I am going to freaking scream.
Murder Jim Ryan.
After holding what Dylan has downstairs in my hands, I'm like, what is this trash we're playing with?
It's
giving
literally
me carpal tunnel.
It's literally 2 pieces of a controller, or one controller split in half.
So hopefully they no longer can use the excuse of like, well, we had a bunch of these in stock, so we had to
use them somehow. And it's like, okay, I get it. You use what you had to in order to make things work. That's great. We're past that now.
So
Should be.
Speaking of other milestones, it is really interesting to watch Warframe grow. Warframe has hit its 5-year mark this year, and in those 5 years, they have hit 50 million lifetime players coming across their platform. Warframe, this game that we played originally when PS4 launched.
So that's amongst all platforms.
All platforms,
Okay.
correct.
Honestly, Dylan and I played Warframe on PC like
Years ago, right?
seriously, like
Yeah.
back when we were in college, like 2012, 2011. Like
Sounds about right.
This is the Thomas the Tank Engine or the little engine that could version of a video game that just won't die. They're like,
13
I
of
think
the
I
gameplay.
can, I think I can, I think
I want
I
to see
can.
Rainbow Six Siege do it.
Oh my god, it'd be so good. It's fascinating because they continue to add their fan base continues to ask for things that they want to add to it, and they're expanding them more and more. I don't think it could have happened to a better studio, because if you have not heard the story about why they are the way they are and why Warframe came into being, is because it was basically their last ditch effort. If it wasn't going to work, they were going to crumble and they were going to go bankrupt and have no jobs for anybody. And they're not in a very large tech hub town, so pretty much all those people would have to move to go find jobs. So, very cool story nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, when we got on it, and I think I want to say it was 2013, because that was when
2014.
2014.
Yep.
It didn't get us, but they started doing a bunch of add-ons as soon as we dropped off, and then when we tried to get back on, we were like,
so much.
we were drowning. We were like,
It's so
we can't
much
even
content.
keep up.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So, kudos to them for really bringing something up that was really cool.
Very excited to see that they're
Dope,
taking
dope.
off, and that leads into the final important story of the week, which is a little sad. A week after GDC, EA lays off 350 people. They're mostly marketing and office people.
Blame Google.
Like, cool.
I'm frustrated with this simply because GDC, though we covered it as if it were a conference show in which there was a lot of interesting stuff, because there is, but the majority of what GDC is there for is for tech people, the games industry, to come together and talk, communicate. If you're looking for a job, you start talking to companies there.
Yep.
It is all about passing your resume around and
Yep.
your products and trying to get people interested. And they had the opportunity to fire these people a week in advance before GDC, so they could have done that. And instead they waited till right afterwards. Maybe Google is the problem. Very well could be.
Oh,
Despite
hands
the
down it
fact
was.
you're laying these 350 people out to dry when they could have spent that entire week working for another job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I wouldn't say Google Stadia just because that would have been like a really hair trigger kind of reaction there. But that's something I imagine that EA has probably had planned in the books
Yeah.
for a couple months now, at least. That kind of thing to lay off a lot of people anyway. I mean, they're a publisher, but realistically, I mean, don't get me wrong, they publish a decent number of games, but how many games do they really publish that they would need, 400, 500, 600 people for, that kind of thing. And I understand where they're coming from, but on the same token of that, this is now, 1,000 people?
Yeah.
1,500 people that have been laid off from the gaming industry now in
Arguably 6-8 months.
not even since the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Since
Yeah, I know
January.
you're right. You're right. From January.
Yeah.
Gee,
Wow.
oh my.
It's
We're
only
talking,
April.
we're talking like 1,500 people that have been laid off since the beginning of the year
It's
in the
absolutely
gaming
months.
industry.
Total.
Absolutely nuts. And you know what? I don't know the technicalities. I'm not saying that it's the catch-all solution, but people wonder why they talk about unionizing.
Yeah.
I understand why they would at least have that discussion, because this is insanity.
Well, I mean, we've always talked about how, like, in your industry in general, and I say yours because I'm not a part of it.
Yeah.
How unfair it seems like everybody is just so cutthroat in getting the job, and then everybody's so worried about losing their job because they're going to have to go look for another one. Project's over, time to look for another job. It's like, who can live that way?
Well, so the difference anyway between like Brent and I, for example, is that we're actually in a thriving market right now. General tech, web design, that kind of thing, programming is actually thriving right now. But the underside of that is gaming. Gaming is actually in a kind of, I don't want to say a critical point because it's not like we're in a tipping point yet.
Yeah.
But the industry is making a shift, and I think a lot of companies are starting to prepare for something.
It's changing its economics. It's changing how it interacts with users, and that is really impacting a large portion of how they handle
they should be
things.
getting more excited with everything going digital. They're going to be able to keep prices up, and they'll
But-
be able to make more off the same product.
It's actually going to go the opposite direction like the music industry did when Spotify came around.
Okay.
I think it's going to go much more
Yeah,
of
because they keep going to streaming services.
Well, they keep going to streaming. They keep going to subscription-based services rather than yes, okay, fine. You have a solid dollar there that's going to come in every month, but the problem is that it's nowhere near as much as the giant fluctuations of what it was whenever you were actually having AAA decent titles get released.
Yeah, not when you have a company that wants to grow by 2% every year, or it's going to get ate up.
And that's the ridiculous expectations from some of these larger publishers is also a problem. I mean, it cracks me up when you look at the history of EA because it, much like every other large company, stems out of a small garage where they're attempting to make something interesting, and here they are now becoming the big, massive bully giant that they are.
Right.
And it's unfortunate. Our hearts go out to all those who are affected, and hopefully you can find something. It really sucks that they didn't take that.
If you want to come
into
market
account.
for us, we would be more than happy to take you.
100%.
Fortunately, we can't really pay you.
Probably not the
But-
smartest move, but it'll be a lot of fun.
Right.
Yeah, we got all the
we're
drinks.
great people.
Yeah. But that is the somber note that ends the important. But we're going to move on to something a little bit more interesting and a little bit different than our typical topic of the show because PAX was this past weekend, but none of us went.
Couldn't.
So,
Guys, I'm feeling something. Somebody's trying to join us.
should we let him?
I don't know. I've been heard if we close our eyes and snap, all in synchronization, we can make it happen.
Let's try it.
All right, ready?
Oh, hello. You're probably wondering why we met you here like this. This is actually our TOTS special. This is not the typical topic of the show. As you can see, we've added another cast member.
I think I'm captured.
I think I'm captured.
It's against his will. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
You can't see the ball and chain, but don't worry about it. It's not
scared.
actually there.
But the whole point of bringing you here, Mr. I Am Legend. I don't know. I don't even know what
I am
the
Legend.
I am Jaeger.
I am
Dylan
Jaeger.
Sinat, and I am Jaeger. Lots of
I am
things.
Jaeger.
Whatever name you want to go with.
1337.
There we go.
There's literally an endless
The
list.
King is what I was trying to go with.
Absolutely. They're iconic.
We
The
fucking-
king of running
we
away.
should have taken the squirrel off the table because we always joke about how you were transformed to the squirrel. It's not here.
Oh yeah, that's right. We should have taken that away already.
It's gone. To talk about PAX because you went to PAX, but this is not going to be a typical conversation of like, hey, what are the cool things that happen at
Yeah.
PAX? Anybody could look that up.
Absolutely.
We want to discuss what is it like going to PAX East, a convention that seems to be aimed at small developers and fans alike.
And also, what was that, PAX?
Absolutely. So first, it would be easier for me to give you your gifts because those are some of the things I
Aw.
want to explain. So I brought everybody something. So we'll start with who wants to start first?
We'll give it to old.
Brent.
Oh, Brent. Okay.
Okay. Handsome John. I was reaching real hard.
Old Brenty.
He's like old.
Oh, look at that.
So at the Square Enix booth, they had a super large booth. They do a
That's awesome.
cool events all the time. Something that they do which is different and that you couldn't really experience normally.
I'm a big Kingdom Hearts fan, in case you're wondering.
Absolutely. Something that they do that's a little different is they actually do a world boss in Final Fantasy, and if the group of, I think it's 8 people, can beat it, they wind up getting all shirts, but they make it kind of custom for PAX, so it's usually a little bit harder than hard, but it's a little different with some variants.
Interesting.
So they do some unique stuff like that there, so it's not your typical, oh, this is just Final Fantasy, or oh, this is just insert new game here.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit unique and kind of tailored for it. And then their shop is also always crazy random and unique.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
In case somebody's wondering, this is Axel. No, there's the reversed. Cloud, Sora, Riku, and Axel. I just want to say on the back, I'm like, you have these pictures. Wouldn't that be convenient if they lined the back is one way and then the front is something completely different?
It's easy. Another really awesome part about PAX is, in retrospect to this shirt, there's a lot of cool and unique artists and designs and stuff that's probably super copyrighted.
That's awesome.
So it is a shirt that says, I climbed Death Mountain in Hyrule at 13,250 feet. There's lots of really cool...
That's really awesome.
there's lots of really cool merch and a lot of cool art. They actually had less art there this year, unfortunately. But one year I got a custom, like Metroid themed piece, as well as Rock Band style Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Would there happen to be one of those pieces in one of the older videos?
Yes, they
There
used
you
to
go.
be in the background. So that's some of the stuff I usually get there. They also have crazy amounts of unique merch there. And then one thing that PAX used to do awesomely, but they have ventured away from, which at first I was sad in like 2015, 2016 when I was going, but they kind of got rid of esports, which is cool because now it's no longer at the event, and the event is way more indie focused. Whereas beforehand it was like they started indie focused, and then they went to esports and big markets, and Ubisoft and all these people had big booths.
Yeah.
So now it's back to indie focused. But the esports stuff are broken out into like after parties.
Yeah.
So on I think Saturday, they rented out a castle for the esports E-League, EMLS, fifth tournament or whatever. They rented out a castle and it was really awesome to get in. And they did a whole bunch of crazy cool custom stuff there. Like they did all custom merch from there.
Oh, it's a fancy shirt.
So they basically, to promote the event, they gave away the EMLS jerseys.
Oh,
and
that's dope.
Yeah,
That is dope.
That's really
so on
cool.
the back, it has like controller style. It says PAX on one of the sleeves, I think. But they did that just for the event, and they did more of this stuff as after parties and kind of like not part of PAX.
Yeah.
Which this year was like, okay, cool, this makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
Whereas the first couple years, it was like they just kind of got rid of it. So it was like, oh, you had this really cool thing, you took it away, and now there's nothing. Whereas now it's like, I get what you're doing, this is cool. And when I first started going to PAX, it was super massive. Whereas now it definitely feels like it's smaller and like super indie focused. There's no longer like the biggest booth there this year was Oculus and Facebook Gaming, but it was just Oculus.
Yeah.
They're really Riot's not there anymore. Like the Ubisoft booth was like literally a merch booth.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then a little smaller little play session. Days Gone was one of the biggest booths, and it was the exact same one from PSX.
You just walk up and you're just like, been there, done that. And
It was
just
one of those
walk
things where
away.
it's like you legitimately copy and pasted this. You didn't change anything.
I mean, to be fair, not everybody goes to every single
Yeah.
for sure.
event.
But it was like a year and a half later.
That's also fair.
So there was no updates. It wasn't even a different demo or anything.
So the first
or?
one there wasn't a demo. This one, it's the demo you've seen.
Okay.
So I mean that was cool, but it's mainly super indie focused, and it was we the whole time walked around and played new games the last moments we were there, as well as as soon as we got there.
yeah.
And it's always the same cool experience if you get to talk to like the indie developers and a lot of smaller people and what games they make. And then it's people who became massive. Like I don't remember the name of the studio, but they make the super popular mobile game where it's the lock and you tap the button and it like hits and then goes the other way, then it hits and it goes the other way and hits. It's really big, but they had. I saw them there like 3 or 4 years ago. They have a whole bunch of games, and then now they're like affiliated with Dave & Buster's, and all their stuff's in Dave & Buster's.
What?
And it's like a team of like 10 people.
Oh, wow.
And like the guy who like is like basically the dude who runs the whole thing. It's like their lead dev guy. And I was like, how did that work? And he was like, honestly, like we got on like the top 10 of the Apple App Store, and then Dave & Buster's called and was like, we want to give you a ton of money to do this. And we're like, what do you need? And they're like, just tell us we can do it. You can do it. And then they just made it and paid us. And we really didn't do anything.
That's
I was like,
awesome.
that sounds awesome.
That sounds pretty dope.
I love making money and not having to do anything.
Yeah, really.
Well,
Yeah.
I love that kind of interactivity where you're able
Yeah.
to kind of run into them. A friend who is not on the show but also went to PAX was regaling me with the tale of how he ran into Todd Howard.
Yeah.
Just
wow.
literally going to grab something to eat.
Yeah, we went to Shake Shack for lunch, and it was like Dustin Legary, Brian O'Connell, and all those guys were just sitting there. And it was like, Sean was like, that's our buddy.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't get it. Like, nobody's talking to them, and like, nobody's like going up to him. I was like, yeah, just because it's normal. Like, if you want to go talk to him, just talk to him or whatever. But it's really cool because you'll see celebrities that you have no idea who they are. Like, when we went to the EMLS thing, there was some of the U.S. national team players,
Yeah.
like from soccer, and it's totally not their crowd. But like me and my buddy Nick were like, you play for the national team, and they're like, hey, what's up, man? So it's really cool that it's like it's one of those places where you can meet anybody you want to meet. We got to see, oh my god, the creator of the head of Gearbox.
Oh, Randy Pitchford?
Yeah, Randy Pitchford. He was signing stuff and hanging out a lot while we were there, and it's just really cool to see like the biggest people being there and just you know this is their place. And you could go up and talk to them. The conferences and stuff were super awesome. There's lots of like, everything from how to get into game design, how to get into the industry, how to do esports, how to do art, how to do cosplay, legit everything.
How many conferences did you see?
I probably went to 6 or 7.
Okay.
I went to mainly YouTube-focused ones.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah. And also esports-focused ones as well. And then I went to one that was really fascinating about barcades and the future of, like, the bar and gaming industry.
Ooh.
Which was
Interesting.
pretty cool. And it's one of those things where it's like it'll be panels of Nick A30, which is a huge YouTuber. He led one of the YouTube ones, and then some of the biggest investors in esports were at the esports one. So it's like these are like the biggest people there, and it's like also one of those things where nobody really knows who they are. So you can just talk to them as freely as you want.
What was your favorite panel?
My favorite panel was probably the Breaking Into Esports panel. Those guys were super knowledgeable. They also had more college level esports, which is cool. and it's also one of those things of kind of, you know, if you want to be a pro in the NBA, it's totally, you need to do AAU basketball, you need to do this, you need to go to college, you need to, like, this is a very set path.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, esports, there is no path.
Oh, cool.
So it's more of those things being like how do you start building the path for people to be like, hey, you want to be a pro League of Legends player, you need to go from A to B to C to D to get there.
So are we talking about, when we're talking
That's
about esports, are we talking about League of Legends, CSGO, like the big ones, or are there any
Yeah,
other
so they were
odd
doing
ones?
it at a college level. So one of the girls on the panel, she is the captain of this college's Overwatch team.
Oh, cool.
And it's very much so just the biggest ones currently.
Makes
but then
sense.
it's one of those, also, how do you transition into, cool, you can be a full-time professional Smash player and you're going to make $20,000 a year. You're not going to live on that. So
Yeah.
what do you do? So that's also where some of the YouTube conferences came in and how to supplement your income. So it was very fascinating from that degree. And it was also one of those things where, you know, part of it's reassuring of like, you know, there's similar people in similar veins. And then it's also like, you know, hearing the ideas you've had, like also reiterated. And it's like, cool, we're all kind of figuring this out together.
Yeah, that's super dope.
Yeah.
I heard you like video games.
I do.
Did you play any while you're there?
I did. So probably my favorite game is one of the dumbest games you can imagine. And it was called,
I like it already.
I think it was called Dunk Stars is the name of it. But it's basically like NBA jams made modern day. It's pretty sweet. It's the basketball arc has different section on it, so wherever you hit your shot from, like you build money. So in between the quarters, you have to buy like power ups and stuff for your people. But it's like NFL Blitz meets NBA Jam. Then it's like arcadey and crazy awesome. There was actually a game there that debuted there with no announcement, and it was crazy interesting. It's basically like a Shogun style BR for PlayStation, where PlayStation's helped back it. And I guess that got announced the week before PAX.
What's the name of it?
It's called Run. Oh, I have to say it on my phone.
Okay.
It's called Run something, but it's basically like you start on a ship, you leave the ship, and you get different armor. Your different armor is crazy, different looking samurai garb.
Okay.
You can get flintlock pistols and stuff. It's called Ran Lost Islands.
That sounds awesome.
But you can stay on a boat and man a cannon as people come to your boat and try to kill you. You can just shoot them with cannons.
That's amazing.
Or you can go pick up like different like scimitars and samurai swords and just melee combat. It's super melee focused.
Oh, that sounds
But there's
so
still
good.
flintlock pistols and stuff that have like, you know, like 5-second reload times.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool environment. It looked really cool, and it was one of those things I was like, this is really neat. And they're like, yeah, we basically didn't say anything about it. And I was like,
No kidding.
probably should.
Yeah.
But so they're doing a beta soonish.
Okay.
So they gave away beta codes there, and I think they're doing like an early access thing on Steam to where you can apply to be in the beta.
Did you get one?
I did.
Okay, cool.
But it's not out yet. And they said that I guess PlayStation had reached out to them, and they may be doing something exclusive with PlayStation in the near future. And it seemed cool. They were running it on PCs there. That one was really cool. Some of the big games that were there that are, you know, obviously looking at Borderlands, which was announced, which
Yeah.
super hyped about that. If you don't know, you can still get the Handsome Jack collection for like $15 on
Oh,
PC.
cool.
It's not on sale for console for some odd reason.
Why would you?
Dylan
Why
and I-
would you?
Dylan and I were looking at it because of the amount of content we literally don't have because we just lost touch.
Yeah,
with
it's
it.
like $225 worth of content for like $15.
It's it's amazing.
It's what? It's Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel plus every single DLC.
I think
Correct,
it's-
including all characters
First
and
and
everything.
second, isn't it? Or
No,
is it
Just the
second?
second.
It's just
But-
second because
but
the first
still,
one
it's
they
like-
just released as a remaster.
Yep.
But yeah, that's
But
still,
still
re-
just like
those
still
games
ton.
are 50 hours long in general, and then you're talking
Minimum.
about throwing all the
Because what I
frickin'
love
DLC
about
in there.
Borderlands is like to officially do the DLC, you have to double tap the game. Like you have to replay through
Yeah.
it. Because like
Yep.
you can't go to the DLC after beating the game. You're not high enough level. So that was really cool. Biomutant looks really good. Just my only issue is that I just wish it was multiplayer.
Interesting.
Because it's like it looks really awesome, and it's probably going to be way more balanced because it's not multiplayer. But it's just one of those things I would probably enjoy playing more with other people. Other than that, it was a ton of indie games and a ton of like random stuff. Like there's a game called What's Golf, and it's a single player level crawler type game to where it's like every level is very different.
Yeah.
Like one level you're a bicycle and you have to hit the golf.
I've
Like,
heard of
So
this,
like you
yes.
throw forward and like you have to hit spacebar. So it's like when you hit your bike just rolls forward. When you hit spacebar, it does like a cartwheel flip over like a ravine or something. Then the next one, it's like, oh cool, now you're a ball and you have to hit this thing into a car to explode to let you get to the hole. It's like every level is like a puzzle, basically.
It looks so good.
But it was pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There was a bunch of other like, you know, smaller games that were there. They're just, you know, really random and cool with cool concepts. One of the neatest things we did was we did the Bose AR demo. but it's not augmented reality, or it's not augmented reality. It's audio reality. That scared me way more than it should.
Wow.
We have an interesting creature in the corner that scared Dylan.
But so basically, they have the audio coming through, and you're just looking through your regular glasses, and it plays sound. So we did this. It's not Angry Birds, to be very clear, but it's basically Angry Birds with cows. But you can't see anything, so it's like you're just looking through a regular pair of glasses, and you hear like a dude over there trying to attack you. So you have to look at it and tap the side, and it'll fire a catapult, and then the voice will be like, "You were just a little bit left," and then you look a little bit more to the right and shoot again, and you hit it.
That's crazy.
But so it's all audio, and it was like very cool. And when I was talking to the guy, so what they do is they do game jams in the cities they're going to for their demos. So they only ever recruit local talent for these games. So the two devs there were both native Boston people, and they'd made them locally. And they said that every conference they're going to, they're going to keep doing that. They're going to go, I guess, a month early, hold a game jam, and then whoever wins, they host them at the event.
That is super cool.
But I was talking to one of the Bose guys about it, and with the Apple TV new stuff, the Jason Momoa show where you're like, the world is blind. It's like a couple generations after that everyone's been blind and nobody even believes sight was real kind of thing. And I was like, I don't know what big studio should do that, but you could totally make a balling game where it's like your world just looks completely normal, but you hear like voices and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know, you could do so much crazy stuff. That was a really unique concept.
Like a Telltale game almost, where you're like making narrative decisions and trying to figure out what you're doing.
Or like just imagine it's like a subconscious like trying to speak to you, tell you to like solve a puzzle or whatever. It's like you would feel crazy because you're just looking, you can hear somebody behind you and like you look and nothing's there.
Well, I'm thinking like even like you have a city block and you could just be like roaming around. You can't really do anything, but you could look at people and like hear their interactions with each other.
They could team up with Pokemon
like,
Go.
Booyah.
You hear like a Pika Pika over there and you got to
and
walk
you turn
to
around
it.
and you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
I heard that the titular spring title yet to be released was there.
The what?
Dreams.
Oh, yeah. Dreams also, same
For
demo
7
from
years.
PSX. Exact same setup. It was one of those odd things. They had the developers there again, and they do a great show. What they do, they did the same thing at PSX. They have the different development leads come out, like the audio designer will come out and design a level for audio. Then the visual designer will come out and visually make a level, but he takes input from the crowds. So they build these crazy cool custom levels, and you're like, every time you're like, wow, this is like the game. Because I came this weekend, I came in about halfway in, and it was like the world was 1,000% different than what they had made the last time I saw the demo. And it was like, cool, beforehand you made this weird platformer, and now you're making some weird dungeon crawling looking RPG. That looks also neat.
Yeah, that is so cool.
That was really cool. There was a couple other stuff. There was the Yoshi games. That's not out yet, is it?
I think it came out around the same weekend.
It did? Okay.
Yeah.
There was a big hype over the Yoshi game. And then Nintendo did a really weird booth setup. They had their main booth, which was all their normal Nintendo stuff. And then they had this little Outcast booth with almost no promotion for Mortal Kombat and other like non-Nintendo stuff. Wow.
They're like, we're family friendly. Just don't look in the corner. Okay.
It's like, we're family friendly. Oh, you're not a family? You should go to that booth right over there. So that was pretty neat. Other than that, there was a little bit less of the like gimmicky stuff there. Like beforehand, I think it was like the Trials Fusion game was there one year I went, and they legit had a dirt bike ramp, and like they were doing dirt bike stuff in the middle of this venue.
That's amazing.
With like actual bikes and dirt bikes and stuff. None of that stuff was really there. But they had a whole bunch of like, different things. Like I took a video and I think I sent it to one of my roommates, and it was DDR, but it was for boxing. So it was like a boxing game to where you look at the screen, and you had, I think, VR on, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a VR, or it's a punching bag, but it has different sensors on it. Or no, it wasn't VR. So it's a punching bag, you have different sensors on it, and then there's a dot in the middle, and you'll see the dot start going like Pac-Man style to a region, and when it gets there, you've got to punch it.
I
So
saw,
it was like a
I saw a
legit
video
like
with
boxing
that.
timing trainer, and it's like the people are legit breaking a sweat, and I was like, wow, that's probably actually legit.
Yeah.
They had some really cool racing sim setups. They had a bunch of really cool like kind of VR, more tech style demo stuff. And then the Oculus booth was just odd. It was like all these people in glass basic cages, so you could watch them play Beat Saber and stuff.
You know what they say about people in glass cages. So it sounds like you saw a lot.
What did they say about people in
ships.
cages?
Don't worry about it. Do you?
They don't throw rocks, Mark.
What was your favorite thing? Like thing that you got to experience there?
Probably the coolest thing is, and it's always the
Coolest
same.
fine too, whatever. favorite? Cool.
My favorite thing, which is pretty much always the same, is just the people you meet. Because you can play any game at any time, but talking to a developer is just different. And at the same time, talking to another person you've never met that may be very passionate about the same thing is just very unique. So just the people you meet's the coolest part about the event. Because, talking to one of our friends from the Realm Royale community, we met a guy who played WoW his whole life, and he just had such an interesting story. And it was like a cool 30-minute conversation. Same thing with talking to developers, just anyone from going to the shows to the expo itself. You just meet so many cool people. It's unreal.
That's awesome.
And that's something that's, I guess, bigger than the event, which is why the event's super cool.
Did you meet anybody that you thought was going to be nice but wasn't?
Really, most people there are super, super nice. It's honestly really crazy. Like when we met some of the players from the U.S. national team or whatever, you would think these guys are uber rich dudes that play soccer professionally, and they're at an esports event probably because they have to be.
Yeah.
And it's I totally don't think you're going to enjoy being here, but those guys were super hyped and those guys were super cool, and it's
That's awesome.
Everyone was super into it. I mean, there was probably some native Bostonians and some people on the train and stuff that
Bastonians,
that weren't the happiest humans. But
Well, that's because they had to go pack the car.
yeah,
At Hobbit.
You have been how many times now to PAX?
that was my 4th time.
So this would easily make you the expert at the table, hence why you've been summoned to this conversation. If anybody is looking to go to PAX next year, what kind of advice would you give them?
So what I always try to do is, if you want to go, I would say go Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Saturday, there's 100,000 people there, and you can't play or do anything. And it's really, unless there's a show or a panel you want to hear on Saturday, it's totally not worth it because you're not going to get a lot done. Sunday and Friday tend to be the best to interact with people, and you can get the most of the stuff done. And then try to pay attention to the stuff that happens outside. Like most of the people we went with, because they never really known about it. They didn't know that there's going to be crazy EMLS stuff. There's going to be a crazy after party, and there's all kinds of really cool experiences that you just got to look into and talk to people and see what they're doing. Cool. And there's always lists you can find on the internet.
Any other parting words before we disperse with you?
My last thing is I've pooped on PAX a ton because when I first started going, it was something, and then it transitioned away from that, and I liked it less. But now, seeing kind of where it's going and where it's headed, it's cool, and it's I totally get where they're going. I think PAX it's a cool experience for people. It's not necessarily the first experience I would pitch. I know, especially for the people at the table, the PSX would probably be the best thing you could go to. It's way smaller. It's way less people. It's way more intimate. Yeah. PAX is 100,000 people, and it's really hard to have those small interactions, and you don't get as many of them. And then if you're into esports, there's still a ton of stuff around it. But I would just say go to the major, the championship of whatever you prefer. Your first, this was Crystal's second event. I took her to DreamHack in Atlanta first because she really loves Smite and Hi-Rez, and that's their show. And she enjoyed that way more than she enjoyed this, and that was a really cool first, and that kind of got her ready for this is going to be 100,000 people, and this is going to be crazy. So PAX might not be the best first one to go to, but I highly, highly recommend going to it at some point.
Okay, very cool. Do you gentlemen have any questions for him?
No, I pretty much answered everything I thought about.
33 acts about me.
Thanks for the cool gifts.
Yeah,
I think it's time
to
disperse with you.
Are we getting
disperse?
Kick me off again?
We'll see you later.
No. We're just gonna wish you away. Close your eyes and just wish that he's gone.
Well, I mean that was disappointing.
Why did we let him come back?
I don't even know.
Who let him back onto this set?
You're the one who felt
snap
it.
your
Okay?
fingers.
I felt something. Okay,
It's not important. You know what is important?
important.
Last call.
Last call.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We're flipping the script. That's what's happening. Before we leave, I do want to shout out a couple of things. One specifically, we have discussed in the past the maneuver of judgment and the cancellation of it in Japan. I don't know if we touched point on the fact that they're still releasing it in the U.S. And the head of Sega actually came out and discussed it in an interview recently, stating, they had the reaction. They actually thought about it for quite some time as a publisher and as the developer behind it. And a majority of their team agreed with the decision to make. They understand that it's not the proper decision because there isn't a proper decision here. It's just the one that they felt like they had to do.
Interesting.
I felt that was fascinating. That not only is the company,
an
but
entire development of a game that's
all of them.
Finished and all of the man hours that went into it, and one guy.
Yeah.
One guy.
So For the US,
Wow.
they're redoing the character model, and obviously it's not going to have the same voice actor. I imagine they'll patch it and release it again in Japan, but they're still losing out on all those physical copies they had to pull and then shelve and re-burn those discs.
Seriously?
It's crazy.
And then and most of those you can't reburn that.
No.
Like you just got to destroy them.
Yep, you're done. So I thought that was fascinating. Also, do not forget, I don't think we pimped them enough, but we do have our wonderful Twitch streamer that is part of the Strange Gaming channel, Xphobia. He is on all the time. If you're not a part of our Discord, which you can be,
This
he
guy is on fire.
tends to constantly send updates to Discord, so that way you don't even have to set a calendar invite, nothing. Discord will tell you exactly when he's on. He also happened to go to PAX and had some interesting experiences. I would love to talk with him, maybe.
I actually want to see because his growth has gone up quite a bit from last
Not
time.
to
Well,
mention,
let's look it up.
if you're just add him on Twitter and let you know every time.
Absolutely. So, XPHOBIA, Xphobia.
Well, actually, if you look him up on Twitch specifically,
Yeah.
it's Xphobia, XPHOBIAA.
Okay, I lied. I lied.
Phobia.
Ah,
I wanted,
Xphobia.
I wanted to see if I could
Not even
find his
nobody else saw.
subscriber count because last time we had seen him anyway, what was this in February? He
Yeah.
crossed 50. So I like the expectation anywhere that the appearance was that he was going to cross over 100 this month. So
Awesome.
we'll see.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, while you're looking that up, I think we're going to move on to our question of the week, which is brought to us by Handsome John.
Uh-oh.
I assume. I don't know. Someone else put a cut. I usually write the question of the week, and then somebody writes, and they're like, "Oh, you didn't use my question." I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm using
No,
question."
that's not at all how that
That's
was going to go.
exactly how the
I'm just trying to be a team player.
question of the week
It
is
was Collinsworth.
what?
Thank God that was it.
Well,
Mitch, by the
but-
way, you drank that super fast.
I did.
You
I
destroyed that.
No wonder why he's knocking glasses out.
I enjoyed it.
The
Yeah, you did.
most intense experience in your life you can remember.
Intense. So I guess this could be either like when you were intense anxiety, like you were super afraid, or pain. I mean, how do you want to go with it?
I think it's just intense in general. We'll leave it open. I have two answers. One of them is fairly recent, so I guess that makes a lot of sense.
Intense.
My wedding day.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
It was a lot of joy. I was bursting at the seams.
I don't know if I would. I guess
It was intense
Were you really?
in the amount of joy I was feeling.
okay.
I was feeling very intense.
All right.
My second one, which I can fit in here real quickly, is when I was a young lad of about 10, my father owned a pontoon boat. And we used to go out boating with him, my brother Adam and I. And we were on the pontoon in the middle of winter one day and on Lake Wylie here in the South Carolina region. And I happened to be on the front of the boat emptying out, I believe, is an old soda or something or along those lines. And off to the left, my father had noticed a log and was not realizing that I was so far on the front and slammed the boat into reverse. So I fell off the front. I was clinging on to the front of the pontoon until I couldn't hold it any longer. As soon as Adam was about to grab my arm, I slipped, fell underneath the boat. It ran over me. Fortunately, there is a guard on the actual propeller because if there was not, I probably would have lost an arm because I had a cut from my wrist all the way up to my elbow joint on my right arm. And it popped up about 30 feet behind the boat. And this is in the middle of December.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So Dad hopped off the boat, Adam being 9, drove the boat back to us.
I got this.
We went back to the house and I dried off and I didn't go to the hospital because, again, the cut was actually fairly shallow. But thank God for that propeller guard. So,
Man, I tell you what, I don't know. I would say when it comes to intense, I would say that it would be across the span of a day.
okay.
So I used to play rugby when I was in high school. And the most intense pain that I ever felt was breaking my foot in half. And it was called a Liz Franck fracture. And essentially, in the middle of your foot, you have all these metatarsal bones. Well, those all cracked, and all the tendons fell from where their placement was.
I was going to make a comment about how this is a very French show, and then you went into vivid detail.
After that happened, I was on the sideline. I had to be carried. Even though that happened, when the kid fell on me, I still tried to run, and then my foot just stopped working. And I was like, wow, that's weird. Never had that happen before. Like, I've been hurt a lot. That's just, all I felt was a pop. That's all I do. And there was no real pain at the moment. It did later.
I was going to say, all that
Okay.
adrenaline
You'll
coursing.
feel it eventually.
So after the game, I drove my stick shift car with my girlfriend in it at the time home, drove her back. There was a fight, which this guy tried to run somebody over. I had to get my girlfriend out in front of that car. He hit me with said car
Oh
after
my
I had broke my foot. And then I got her in the car, took her home and had to apologize to her parents why she was late, hobbled back to my car, and then went to bed. At which point, I woke up the next morning to my mother smacking my legs together because I wasn't going to school. I was done.
Yeah.
I was going to try to sleep it off because I thought I'd sprained my ankle or something. I was going to wake up and deal with it the next morning.
Jeez.
Mom, for no reason, has never done this before, had just took my feet and started slamming them together. And I screamed. I had woke up in so much pain.
I can imagine.
I believe it.
It was intense. So, yeah, 2 screws, a lot of, like, hobbling around, boots, and all sorts of stuff later. I could walk again.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah. Doctor said I was lucky. I would have been better off cutting it off.
Oh, there you
Clean. And he goes, I could have done that every day. You were just lucky.
go. All right, Mr. Dispatcher.
So easily. I mean, the most heightened moment I guess I've ever been in was the motorcycle crash.
Interesting.
Ooh.
And now I want to be clear here. This one is solely my fault.
Yeah.
There was no other party involved. Nobody else got hurt. No other accident. That kind of thing. We were up for a mountain weekend, last one of the season, that kind of thing. So it's like everybody wants to get their rocks off, going through the corners, that kind of thing. I've got 2 pictures that literally are leading up to it, and then 2 pictures of my friend Kelly, who's right behind me. So the picture of me, the first one's me coming into the corner. The next one is me like fully into the corner. If you look into it, the picture's high resolution enough. You can see I'm going through the corner at 61 miles an hour. And if you look at my back tire, I'm at the edge of my back tire before you hit the sidewall of it. The next picture is my friend Kelly here, down low, that kind of thing, like leaning into the corner like he's getting ready to turn. The next one is him pushing back on the handlebars as he's standing up because he sees me slide out. And I'm not kidding you. I can, I guess, reenact it in my head, but I can't actually see it.
Yeah.
Because like your brain,
It does weird stuff.
Your memory just sort of blanks on a lot of that stuff. But the bike slid out from me. And I mean, I let go of it. I did exactly what I'm supposed to. I let go of it. But then my body spun perfectly perpendicular to the direction I was going. Like if you drew a line from my head out through my ass.
Why you do that, nobody knows.
I rotated on that perfectly.
Wow.
Like arms out, tumbled, like landed on my left shoulder, that kind of thing. Like landed on my right shoulder and just sort of tumbled.
That day they could have called you the tumbleweed.
Yeah, they could have because I tumbled right into some weeds.
Yeah.
No, but the bike slid perfectly into a culvert, like a concrete culvert. The wheels are actually what hit the bottom of the culvert and stopped the bike, that kind of thing. It was only scuffed up the left side. The foot peg broke off. But
Yeah.
mechanically, everything's fine. And majority of the time, what happens is it's leaking oil. There's no oil anywhere. There's no fire. The bike shut itself off. And I landed in the grass. My helmet never touched the asphalt. And I landed and set my head down in the grass and then immediately popped right up or whatever. And like all the adrenaline hit me at one time, that kind of thing. And I mean, I was terrified for about 3/4 of a second. And then I plopped in the grass and I woke up and I was like, I'm good. Everything's fine. And I even like Kelly rolls up or whatever, just panicking. Oh my God, are you okay? So actually, it's probably more his heightened moment than mine.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I came up, I was fine. But oh my God, the amount of adrenaline that was running through me when that happened, just in the span of like a 5-second incident,
That is nuts.
was insane.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
Well,
Man.
can
Can I go with one more?
Go ahead.
On the other end, talking about you getting drug under a boat.
Yeah.
So back in Florida, there was a sandbar we used to pull up to down near Miami Beach.
Okay.
And a buddy of mine, like he and I were pretty good about running the boat, that kind of thing. Like I'd throw the anchor, I'd make sure we were planted and that kind of thing. Because sometimes the current would come in from the channel.
Yeah.
Well, the current was really strong. And we were parked really close to the channel at this point. So the small anchor he had was not enough to keep the boat stable. So like I'm the one who's fighting the current, that kind of thing, and plant the anchor, and it's just not holding. All the sand's getting washed off, that kind of thing. So like I bring everything back, and he turns the boat on, and it's an inboard, so it like the motor itself, or it's more of a jet boat anyway.
Yeah.
It has like actually 2 motors that are in the boat anyway, and it's just 2 turbines that are kind of like pulling the water through. So it's not like I'm going to get hit a propeller or anything like that. But it's still terrifying to get drug under a boat. So I know that in the back of my brain. So I come back and I toss the anchor up on there, and he's got the boat running at like a low idle to keep it in place. And the ladder won't come back down or like the ladder won't stay where it is anyway for me to be able to grab onto it, that kind of thing. So they leave the ladder up, and I'm trying to pull up myself up the side of the boat, and he starts to go. I have 2 arms up over the front edge of this boat, and he is starting to move at like a solid 15, 20 miles an hour, and my legs are just dangling, just dangling under this boat, and I'm holding over the edge, and I mean, my arms hurt.
I can
When
imagine.
I pulled back up, because I mean, I flexed so hard to hold myself up onto that thing, and somebody finally grabbed me from the arm, somebody else grabbed me by the other arm, and they lifted me up onto the boat.
There you go.
Ridiculous.
Another heightened moment of like, I blanked on some of the detail and then sat for a second and thought about it, and it came back to me.
It's funny you guys are talking about boats. I remember, I think we were in St. Thomas and we were on a boat. And you ever see like waves crash up against, like really hard up against like a flat rock wall like we did over at the Cliffs of Moher?
Yeah.
Well, over there, the spot where this boat took us, where Mom was snorkeling, I saw Mom going out and he goes, "Don't go too far." And I saw her swimming, but she was swimming in place. And she
wow.
Yeah, so and she was still pretty far out, but she wasn't strong enough to get out of it.
Rip current.
Yeah, so I dove in there and I literally like just put her against and just held my breath as long as I could and hit it as hard as I could to get her out of there. That was intense, probably more for me because I don't think she understood the situation she was in.
I was gonna say this is why my mom taught us early, like rip current, like certain other currents that happen, that kind of thing. Teach your kids early, young. Like I learned how to swim when I was like 3.
Yeah, I was 4.
Yeah, we did like mommy and son, like
all that whole
fucking
thing.
swimming classes, that kind of thing, and then my sister was like 2 and she was learning how to swim too, that kind of thing. So,
But what do you do in rip current?
parallel.
There you go.
Got to swim parallel.
Always swim parallel to the beach.
Slight diagonal in towards the coast.
Yep.
That's not at all
That will
what I
carry you back.
That's always what you do.
Yep.
If you try and push against it, going out or in, you're just going to tire yourself out.
Yep.
So that has been the show for the week. Please let us know what your intense moments are in the comments above us. I apologize for the longer length of this episode in the previous one. We just had some cool events and we want to do something special, hence why the longer episodes. But next week, we'll make sure it happens within the
45
hour mark,
minutes.
or else someone on this cast dies. Until then,
Hopefully
cheers.
it's me.
Cheers.
Thank you.